Democrats. But this morning, its leader, Nick Clegg, made it clear he thinks the Tories have the right to try to govern first. Here, then, is the state of the parties. We'll bring up the numbers on your screen. The Conservatives have 295 seats, Labour have 252, the Liberal Democrats have 53, and the others have 27, and there are 23 seats yet to go. In terms of the share of the vote, the Conservatives have 36%, Labour 29%, the Liberal Democrats 23%, and the others nearly 12%. Our first report this lunchtime is from our political correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue.
Are you going to resign, Mr. Brown?
Back in Downing Street, but for how long? He'll end up with fewer seats than David Cameron and almost certainly fewer votes. For the time being, though, he retains the keys to number 10. Aides say the Prime Minister is taking a nap, but has also authorised civil servants to give assistance to the parties in any negotiations. So what happens now we've got a hung Parliament? Gordon Brown remains the Prime Minister and can try to put a government together, possibly by cutting a deal with the Lib Dems. If he can't, then he'll have to resign, and the Queen would ask David Cameron to see if he can form a government. Mr Cameron may try to cut a deal of his own with the Lib Dems, or he may decide he has enough seats to govern as a minority administration. So despite a really poor night for the Lib Dems, they could still play a vital role in who takes power.
Nick Clegg, are you going to do a deal with the Tories?
This morning, an eagerly awaited Nick Clegg acknowledged it had been a disappointing night for the Lib Dems and repeated his view that the party with the most seats and most votes should have the first shot at forming a government, appearing to rule out talking to Labour, at least initially.
It seems this morning that it's the Conservative Party that has more votes and more seats, though not an absolute majority. And that is why I think it is now for the Conservative Party to prove that it is capable of seeking to govern in the national interest. At the same time, this election campaign has made it abundantly clear that our electoral system is broken. It simply doesn't reflect the hopes and aspirations of the British people.
This is the Cabinet Office just round the corner from Downing Street. It's one of the places the politicians could get down to their tough talking. The country's not been in a position like this for 35 years, and it could take days to sort it out. As for the Prime Minister's future, Lord Mandelson wouldn't be drawn.
Is it time to ditch Gordon Brown to save Labour, Lord Mandelson?
I think it's time to show great patience, wait and see and let the results come in, and then the parties can look at their dispositions and the arithmetic and go from there.
David Cameron arrived back in London early this morning, planning to get some sleep himself. In the next hour, the Tories say he will set out how he plans to establish a strong and stable government. It's just a beginning, and the next few days will be very difficult. Gary O'Donoghue, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, let's see what the constitutional position is and cross live now to Buckingham Palace and join our correspondent there, Nick Witchell. And Nick, I suppose the Queen is waiting like the rest of us to see who the next Prime Minister is. What is her role?
Indeed, normally by this stage, on the morning after a general election, the Queen would be here at Buckingham Palace. Normally she would have invited somebody by now to form a new government. Not today. She is quite literally keeping her distance from what is happening. She's at Windsor, where this morning she's been presiding over an investiture, and there are no plans at the moment for her to return to Buckingham Palace. This, above all, is a situation for the politicians to sort out. The Queen is not here in the role of some super referee to resolve an inconclusive general election. She's being kept very closely in touch with what is happening through her private secretary, and the feeling at the palace is that the politicians should be given as much time within reason as they need to come to some arrangement. When they have done that, Gordon Brown will be the first to be invited to Buckingham Palace as the incumbent Prime Minister. He will be the first to be asked by the Queen, are you in a position to form a government? Now, if Gordon Brown says yes to that question, the implication will be that he feels that he is in the strongest position to command the confidence of the House of Commons, and he will be entitled then to form a government. If, however, he were to say no, Gordon Brown would then resign, and it would be at that point that the Queen would then invite David Cameron to Buckingham Palace, and he would be asked the same question: are you in a position to form a government? The implication, of course, would be that David Cameron would say yes to that, but it may be several days before we are in that position.
All right. Nick, thanks very much. Nick Witchell outside Buckingham Palace. Well, last night saw the departure of a number of famous